Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. With them rain, shine, and anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to the preview for the Texas Tech game, a game that in the beginning of the year we were super excited about. I think a bunch of preseason expectations. We're definitely making this out to be one of the premier matchups, and it does get a premier network in Big Boy Fox at 2:30. But it's much easier to say that Texas Tech has lived up to expectations than K-State has because, Texas Tech is a really solid to really good team this year. Great in some areas, but we'll just go ahead. They're 7-1, the only loss being a narrow one on the road up against Arizona State. And they've pretty much nuked everyone else from orbit, which is why they're 13th in the nation.
Yeah, pretty much all of their games have been non-competitive, with, of course, the exception, the loss at Arizona State. And then the Utah game was competitive for a decent chunk of it, but Tech pulled away at the end. But, yeah, I mean, this Tech team is highly ranked for a reason. It's looking like they'll probably make the college football playoff. They're almost certainly going to be in Arlington for the Big 12 championship. This is the best team that we've faced all year.
Yeah, and barring a collapse, which, Tech has had a penchant for collapsing down the stretch in previous seasons. Barring a collapse, yeah, I think you're right. They are the favorites to go down in Arlington. They'd probably be the favorite to win in Arlington, no matter who they're going up against. And a big reason for that is when we get to the notable players section, some of it is going to seem a little more sparse than others. And that's not because we don't really have too much to say about them. It's simply because they are probably the most athletic team that we've ever had. And 9 times out of 10, they are winning based off of athleticism. And that, I think, leads beautifully into the first 2 bullet points of the offensive breakdown.
Yeah, right now they're number 4 in the country in yards per game and points per game. They're tied for 14th, and their third down conversion rate at 50.4%. They're a little lower in red zone percentage. They're 49th in the country in that 88% of the time they're scoring, 57% of the time it's a touchdown. But they are top 5 in red zone attempts in the country and are 26th in yards per play at 6.2. So the raw stats already show that they're a very effective team on offense in multiple ways. And then for kind of some of their play splits, they run slightly more than they throw, but they've had a lot of trouble keeping the quarterback healthy this year, and that could be a partial explanation. 3 quarterbacks have taken significant snaps for Texas Tech this year. Their backup, Will Hammond, just tore his ACL. He's kind of the future at their position for them. And Baron Morton has been out for the last couple of weeks, although he's been available. He just hasn't been playing. Then Mitch Griffiths, who I believe is a Wake Forest transfer, has also taken some notable snaps for them as well.
Yeah, and that I don't think Will Hammond was. A lot of people seem to have this. Texas Tech fans have this weird thing where nothing is really ever good enough for them, which is super strange considering how, I feel like Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and K-State all kind of have that friendship with one another. And 2 of them are generally pretty down to earth. And Texas Tech fans, it just seems like they have very heightened expectations. And I think that had a lot to do with Will Hammond, because I think there were honestly times that Will Hammond was better than Baron Morton this year, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that they are very much their quarterback team that has a lot of trouble with keeping their quarterback healthy. And it's not even because their offensive line is bad, because hand up, this is the best trenches. This is the best trench play, both on offense and defense, that we will see this year, outside of maybe the offensive line of Utah, because the offensive line of Utah has 2 near guarantee first round draft picks. This one might have 3, but that's neither here nor there right now. But yeah, they're a very, very effective offense this year. And again, a lot of that just comes down to they are infinitely more athletic than just about anyone that they're going up against. And that especially helps given their system.
Yeah, they're a spread team, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, this is still Texas Tech. They've been a spread team for a long time. But also offensively, they don't rotate a lot. They kind of have their best guys out there for as much time as they can. Only 14 players have more than 100 snaps. And when you take out the quarterbacks, you get a top 11 that doesn't change at all. So it's a very consistent unit for the Red Raiders, which is a little interesting given, I think, how hard they hit the portal. I think that there is kind of a perception that they have a just like untold amounts of depth. And they do have a lot of depth, but it's they're not getting as much rotation or run as I think maybe they're perceived to.
Yeah, and I think that's just sort of like a familiarity thing. Like they know the guys that they're deploying out there know the system very well, which I think they use a lot of the veer and shoot principles, which means they're going to use some option routes and just read coverage based on that and then get open based on that. So having those receivers that your quarterback has the most familiarity with is especially important in those kind of systems. So, they're a spread team. They're going to use very, very wide splits oftentimes, try to force those one-on-one matchups. And when you have their receiving core, specifically the 2 guys that we're going to talk about later, even if it is, brief, just having those 2 guys with their specific skill set is what makes this offense incredibly dangerous, because they're going to, this is the game that if we we're ever going to bring back the true 3-3, this is probably the game where it would be best to do it.
Yeah, they're on their running game. They are mostly a zone running team, with the exception being their quarterback running game is more of a counter action and 2 pulling linemen in order to get a proper seal. Most of their runs go outside the tackles, and that's probably because their linemen are incredibly athletic and the most athletic lineman group that we will see all season. And of course, you're going to get a lot of RPOs, with screens being about 20% of their passing plays, and most of those screens being RPOs.
Yeah, and again, that's the veer and shoot influence coming through and shining in spades, that they are going to do a lot of RPOs, and not to steal from the next point, but it's slants, hitches, occasionally mesh when they're not playing in outer space, and fade routes. That is their route tree. And again, in college where the hashes are wider and you're going to have to play more in space, that's all you really need. I mean, DK Metcalf made a career in college just running slants, hitches, and goes, and it was a 2nd-round draft pick who is still damn effective in the NFL doing the exact same thing against better competition. That's all you need when you have the skill sets that Texas Tech has. And the funny thing is that they have the offensive line to take more deep shots, but their time to throw is pretty consistently 2 to 2.5 seconds, which is pretty fast in comparison to everyone else that we've seen. I think the only person that immediately comes to mind that's faster is Josh Hoover, and that's with multiple quarterbacks taking snaps in this system. But as I said, I already covered the bullet point with the passing game. So now we can talk about their notable offensive players, which will inevitably turn into, this Texas Tech team is insanely talented.
Yeah. As always, we start with the quarterback here. Even though we did say they've played 3 quarterbacks and notable snaps, the main guy, the number 1 quarterback, is Baron Morton, who has been around a while. We're familiar with him, but he's got a rocket arm, but he's comically injury prone. That's really the story on his entire college career. He hasn't developed a ton in his time in Texas Tech, and a lot of that is just because he's been hurt quite a bit. This week is going to be his first week back from injury. He, I think, was technically available the last 2 weeks in a kind of break case of emergency sort of situation, which the Arizona State game was certainly an emergency. I don't know why they didn't break it there, but last week they definitely didn't need him. On Barron, he's never been a surgically accurate quarterback or the greatest processor. And he relies very heavily on the fact that he has a missile attached to his right shoulder, which kind of makes him the anti-Jalen Daniels, who Jalen, he kind of excels at picking out a single matchup and beating that matchup with his arm, but he struggles when forced to beat defenses using nothing more than his brain. So hopefully he's a little rusty coming back, but with the amount of offensive talent that they have, I'm just not going to count on that. But still an interesting quarterback situation they have going in Lubbock.
Yeah, it does interest me that we are going back-to-back weeks with quarterbacks with the exact opposite skill set, where Jalen Daniels, you want to play a ton of man coverage just because he's not going to be able to beat you with his arm. Baron Morton, arguably, you want to play a lot more zone coverage, not only because their receiving core terrifies you, but also because you're going to have to make him think. And I'm not saying that he's, stupid. Like, he will make easy reads, but he's not going to go, 1, 2, 3. And like, he may get to 1 and then halfway through 2. And by then it's probably 3.5 seconds into the play. And I think in a lot of ways, he reminds me of, this is a pull. Well, not really. Jake Browning, when he was at Washington, where, he just had a nuclear weapon for a right arm, and he just threw up deep shots to John Ross and occasionally threw a check down to Myles Gaskin, and it worked, and he was a 4th-round draft pick, and then just kind of has stuck around the NFL. Not because he's a good processor, but because if there is a maybe 5 to 10% chance that a throw is possible for a normal quarterback, that goes up to about 40 to 50% for Jake Browning and Baron Morton, just because he can fit it into windows that not many quarterbacks are capable of. Now, that also leads to him not being the most accurate because he doesn't know what touch is. He throws bullet passes or lobs. That's it. Which, those are the 2 core throws, but it really does sort of hamper what you can do, especially over the middle of the field, which, again, this is not an offense that does that very often. So, Baron Morton, again, coming off of injury, I think he's played K-State 2 or 3 times, and I don't think he has finished any of those games that he's played up against K-State. Because I remember, that was the Jake Strong game, where Jake Strong ends up coming in, and that's the Avery 5 rushing touchdowns game as well. So I don't think Baron Morton has ever finished a game up against K-State. But that's a lot to say. Rocket arm, makes throws that no one else can, but he's not the greatest processor, and you can bait him into mistakes.
Yeah. I think we'll go and move on then to the next notable player, and that's Cameron Dickey at running back, which they do have multiple running backs that they use a decent amount, Dickey being one of them, and the other being Jacoby Williams, who's had himself a solid season as well. But Dickey's kind of the lead there. mostly due to Jacoby Williams kind of dealing with injury. But both their running backs are burners. They're heavy speed backs. So that's they're guys that can break a long explosive run at any moment, really.
Yeah, Cameron Dickey, I would say, is much closer to being like a true one cut back, where it's one cut and then gone, which, that makes perfect sense for him. Jacoby Williams has a better tendency to sort of bounce runs a little bit. He's a little closer to Taj Brooks. He is not Taj Brooks, because Taj Brooks had, obviously no one is Le'Veon Bell, but he did have that sort of patience where he was going to wait and sort of feel his blocks develop. Jacoby Williams has, I keep wanting to call him Jacoby Lane. That is a completely different player. Jacoby Williams is much more in that style, but it almost doesn't matter when both of them, the moment they get to open field, are gone anyway. I mean, Cameron Dickey is a big reason why KU just got ran all over by Texas Tech, because he would find that one hole and gone. It didn't matter anyone else. So both running backs just require insane discipline, both in run fits and eye discipline from specifically linebackers. Otherwise, I mean, one cut, gone. You'll never see them again until they line up for the next time on the field. And both of the primary wide receivers are very similar in that regard. And it all comes down to speed and athleticism.
It's Caleb Douglas and Coy Aiken, number 5 and number 3, respectively. They're great deep threats. They're extremely fast as well. They lead the team, each in their own categories. Caleb Douglas has more yards, but not by a ton, by about 60-ish. Coy Aiken, he has one more reception than Caleb Douglas does. So they're both the top targets, but throw in Reggie Virgil as well. He has 32 catches on his own, which is 2 off of the team lead. But it's really Douglas and Aiken that have been the biggest weapons thus far, although Virgil does lead in touchdown receptions.
Yeah. And here's just a fun fact about Coy Aiken. He has a perfect PFF grade on deep balls. Like literally 99 grade on deep passes. And I think he has a 99 grade intermediate over the middle as well. So absolute monster just with the ball in his hands, because he's so absurdly fast, and his deep ball tracking is also extremely good. Now, I do think that Coy Aiken is the better of the 2 receivers, but that's not to discount Caleb Douglas, because I think in a lot of ways they're the same player. Just absurdly athletic, pretty good hands, yak threats who also can take the top off of any defense, mixed with exceedingly wide splits. Yeah, that is a recipe for just creating an army of Jalen Hyatts, which Jalen Hyatt was also a second-round pick. We don't have to talk about how he panned out in the NFL, because turns out, Josh Weipel's veer and shoot offense did a lot of the heavy lifting there. But yeah, this is how this offense and these 2 just are Jalen Hyatt again, and there are 2 of them.
Yeah, it's really not fair. They do just have weapons everywhere on this offense, and it just like by sheer volume makes things so difficult to stop defensively. And with all those weapons, it may lead you to think your best bet is going to be trying to get pressure instead, because if you just let them sit back, eventually guys are going to get open anyways. But that's not really an option against this offensive line either, because they have a fantastic O-line as well. And it just doesn't get any better, really, when you look at it from that perspective, which is annoying because, in the past, even when Tech has had great offensive weapons, you've been able to, at the very least, rely on them not really being great in the trenches. but they've done a great job keeping Baron Morton clean this year. He's only been pressured on 25% of his dropbacks this year. So that's just not going to be a reliable way to slow them down. Their offensive line is just filled with really big, athletic offensive linemen. It's there's not a clear and obvious like light shining. Here's the weakness, sort of deal here, which I imagine as Joe Kleinerman a little frustrated right now. But it's top to bottom, this is a great offense.
Yeah. And I will say that 25% of you hear like, oh, 1 in 4 dropbacks, he's getting pressured. I want to posit this for you because they've only allowed 11 total sacks on the year. Baron Morton has taken 6. Will Hammond has taken 3. The Mitch Griffiths, it took 2. So those 25% on Baron Morton, I would put money on. I didn't chart all of those plays, but I would bet money on almost all of those pressures being Baron Morton hanging on to the ball for more than 3 seconds. Because that offensive line is giving him as much time as most offensive lines will give someone on a consistent basis. And there are reps where the offensive line is just straight up stonewalling people. And there's not a damn thing that anyone can do about it. Which, I mean, like you said, it's just not fair. We don't have a Felix this year to embarrass some poor future accountant and get a safety. That would be nice if we had that. Even then, I still think Felix would be held to like a pedestrian day just because this offensive line is so good from top to bottom. Now, are they the greatest in run blocking? No, but that's what the RPO game is for. They adjust for that, and they're an elite pass blocking unit for a team that is going to run an unholy amount of RPOs, a lot of play action, and wants to throw the ball deep. Yeah, this is, like, if you are building a team, this is the type of team that you build with just a bunch of created players that, you don't want to make everyone 99, but you want everyone to be a perfect scheme fit. This is what happens when you get that kind of roster. What I have questions about is a coaching issue, because I still don't believe that Joey McGuire is a good in-game coach, and I still think their offensive coordinating, even under Zach Kitley, who's now I believe at FAU, is like, it was good then, and I think it's just good now. It's just having everyone with a scheme fit sort of elevates that. So to me, like, if this was a purely talent-based matchup, K-State, the K-State defense is getting destroyed. But it's a scheming matchup as well. Again, this sounds very familiar to Colorado last year, and then KU, the opposite, where we're sort of in KU shoes, where we're in the position of we have to outcoach them. That is our way of winning. And let me tell you, that doesn't get any easier when you look at their defense.
Yeah, this Texas Tech defense is fantastic. By the numbers, they're 10th in yards per game, tied for 4th in points per game with Iowa. They're 13th in third down percentage at just 30%, 44th in the country in red zone percentage. But only 50% of the scores that they're giving up in the red zone are touchdowns. And they've only allowed 16 red zone possessions this entire year. So it's it'd be fair to call them stout, I think.
Yeah. For reference, they have 36 offensive red zone possessions, and they've only allowed on defense 16 of them with 8 touchdowns. That's just not fair. I think that just feels dirty, because I know that we've said this. It's almost been the meme for the past, I don't know, decades. Like, oh, just wait until Texas Tech has a defense. Damn it. But we waited. It happened.
Yeah, it's not fun to finally be on the other end of that. But the on their defense, um, the main thing that you've heard about Texas Tech, even if you probably haven't paid a ton of attention to college football, is that they spent a ton of money out in the portal this year. There's been conflicting figures, some more than 20 million, some figures have them as high as in the mid 40s. But that money, uh, in the most of it went to the trenches. And what this has produced is probably the best defensive line that K-State has faced since Texas a few years ago. And it's probably up there with Alabama and the Sugar Bowl a few years ago as well. They are 8th in sacks in the country, and they have put up 188 quarterback pressures on the season. So they're averaging 3.25 sacks per game and 24 pressures per game, which is absolutely absurd. For reference, K-State has 121 pressures on this season. And this is supposed to be, pass rush was supposed to be one of our strengths coming into this year. So Tech has been absolutely incredible this year. Of course, there's a couple players in particular that have just utterly absurd pass rushing stats when it comes to sacks and pressures that we will certainly talk about. But I'll save that for now.
Yeah, this is the most scared that I've been of a defensive line. And whereas a few years ago with Texas, the main thing that scared me was Moro Ajomo and, is it Byron Murphy or Byron Young?
I think Murphy.
I think it's Murphy. And just the interior pressure. They handled that pretty well, actually, in that game. I expected that game to go a lot worse for us. This year, it's not entirely edge pressure, but imagine getting, half of a Moro Ajomo, which is still an all Big 12 player. And then you just get 2 first-round picks on the edge and a rotational nose tackle that is also pretty good. I mean, it's not a surprise that this is a team that is so capable of creating pressure. And it's one of those defenses that even when they aren't getting immediate pressure, they're in your lap so often that eventually you just start seeing ghosts. And they don't do anything particularly creative. I mean, they slant their defensive line, but 9 times out of 10, they just say go win, and they do. Now, do I think that they have one guy that is better than Tyree Wilson? No, but on the aggregate, they have replaced Tyree Wilson a few years ago, who I believe went number 4 overall to the Raiders. Didn't really pan out there. But he was an absurd power rusher in college. And now they have 2 edge rushers that are 80% of that. There are 2 of them now. That sucks. I don't like that.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to add for superlatives, but this defensive line, every other week I look at it and I'm just so thoroughly impressed by the prospects they have on it and just how much talent is on that defensive line. But for this week, I am utterly terrified of it because they are going to. It's gonna be a slaughter, I think, if they play to the level I think they're capable of. But they have NFL guys at just about every level on this defense. 2 of them are fringe first-round guys, with another being dinged just by virtue of him being an off-ball linebacker. They are more than capable of bullying just about everyone they go up against, just by virtue of raw talent. Their coaching of the defense hasn't really gotten that much better. They just went out and got way better players. But on that note, they can still get out coached. And as Ace has said, that's going to be how we win if we do. And getting out coached is precisely how they lost to Arizona State.
Yeah, and I think that Kenny Dillingham is miles upon miles better as a true football coach than Joey McGuire, and they still only won by 3.
Yeah. Joey McGuire, without a doubt, an incredible evaluator of talent, one of the best recruiters in college football today, but definitely has work to do in the X's and O's side of things. I think he would probably readily admit that as well. But for now, he's leaning into his strengths. Strengths is talent acquisition, and by God, did they do that this offseason. So,
yeah,
if you know your strengths, might as well lean into them.
Yeah.
But on some of their more scheming side of things, they run a 2-4-3-3 hybrid scheme, which is most similar to what UCF ran this year a little bit and what they ran a few years ago. They have a nose tackle and a 3-tech with 2 stand-up edge players lined up on the outside shoulder of the tackles. And you'd think that would put them at a disadvantage in the run game, but they limit damage in that way by slanting inside and attacking one shoulder of a lineman rather than playing them straight up. And so that gives them really the best of both worlds. Wide edge pressure is possible, and they don't give up too much in the way of the running game. So when they're not in that kind of 2-4 deal, it's the same 3-3 that we see very often.
Yeah, outside of those looks, which granted they are going to do that 2-4 more often than not, but when they're not, they're in that same 4-2/3-3 hybrid that everyone has run. You know, that some people call it 3-3 tight, others just call it a 4-2, whatever. It's the same thing that we've seen before, just with the talent jacked up to 11. But I think this next point will kind of speak to something I think Stan Weber actually pointed out, which might be the first time I've ever referenced him on the show, that defensive line, terrifying. Trenches, generally terrifying. Defensive backfield is just kind of okay for Texas Tech. But again, with how they scheme, oftentimes doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're really banking on the fact that their front 6 really is just so good that you're just not going to be able to beat them over the top, and if you do, you're not going to be able to do it enough to do it consistently. And they're kind of right, honestly. Like they made that bet, and it's really paid off up to this point. But one more note on their defense is, despite what you might think with the talent that they've collected, they're more of a zone coverage team than man, which kind of goes into what Ace was referencing Stan Weber on. They really want to make the quarterback diagnose because they're not going to have time to do that properly. Now, if they went out and got a more talented secondary, they could run man pretty easily, and they honestly probably still could do it just with how good that pass rush is. But running zone and running a mix of zone coverages, that just forces that extra beat from the quarterback, and that's almost always enough time to, at the very least, get pressure in quarterback hurries and maybe force a bad throw.
You know, a thought that I there is a quarterback that was in college a few years ago that would be the perfect quarterback to go up against this particular type of defense, and it's Daniel Jones.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something way more outlandish than that.
What'd you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Jared Dagey.
Honestly, that wouldn't be a bad one either, just because that man, neither of them can feel pressure at all, which means that they're going to get nuked multiple times, but they're not going to let the fact that they're getting nuked really bother them. also known as the Eli Manning effect. So, I mean, if you have a quarterback that just doesn't feel pressure and is perfectly fine with getting nuked, this type of defense just doesn't really work. The problem is that those quarterbacks just don't really exist. So you get them and they're extremely rare. The Jarrett Doege would actually be a good pull for that, actually. But yeah, this defense plays much more on fear than just about any other defense, because their goal is to create apprehension that you're about to get nuked, which will make you take an extra second and sort of break your focus on diagnosing what they're playing. And I mean, they have two. We'll talk about the D-line last, which isn't how I have them listed. The two other notable defensive players we have are Jacob Rodriguez and Cole Wisniewski. Wisniewski is just a strong safety that we pursued. He's really, really good in run defense and rotation. That's his game. But I'll give you the honors of talking about Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah, he might be the biggest beneficiary of the revamped defensive line, because right now he's one of the front runners for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And the biggest reason for that is he just flies around the field and he doesn't put himself in many bad positions. He has plus athleticism at the linebacker position, and he has great instincts, and that makes him so dangerous. He's a very fun player to watch as well when he isn't about to face you. But he, all around, is just an absolutely fantastic linebacker. He's a strong tackler as well. Not great in coverage, but that's just not his game for the most part. I mean, he's been targeted 28 times and given up 23 receptions. So his reception rate given up is very high. To his credit, though, when it's not that, he's making some havoc plays. He has 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. I'm giving him some credit there, but otherwise, I mean, 23 catches for 205 yards against him on the year. So teams have been productive there, but as a run-stopping linebacker, which is his first job, he is really as good as it gets, I think. PFF gives him a 97.3 run defense grade, which is one of the highest, if not the highest I've ever seen. And you know, a lot of it is his individual talent, but also a lot of it is due to the guys playing in front of him on that immensely talented defensive front.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about Jacob Rodriguez is that his biggest problem is that he kind of overruns in coverage. Like, he doesn't have an off switch. Like, he is not capable of slowing himself down, which, you know, fine. If you're going to have a linebacker that plays with his hair on fire and still be good, that's fine. That's what Daniel Green was for like 8 years at K-State. So, and now the moment everyone's been waiting for, the entire starting defensive line.
Yeah. I'll just name them off here. So remember these names. Well, you don't really need to. They'll be saying them on Saturday. Romello Height, number 9. David Bailey, number 31. They're both the edge rushers. Then Lee Hunter at nose tackle. He wears number 2. Then A.J. Holmes wears number 33. So that's their starters on the D-line. Romello Height is a top 10 edge rusher. David Bailey is a top 20 prospect in the entire NFL draft class. Lee Hunter is a top 5 nose tackle in his class. There's just no weakness on their defensive line. They are more than capable of just completely out-talenting the offensive line in front of them, because in most cases they are just flat out better. And the stats back it up, and the eye test really, frankly, backs it up too. If you watch Texas Tech games, they are constantly getting immense, just back-breaking pressure on offenses. The Tech KU game was just nonstop pressure from Texas Tech. David Bailey this year, he has 50 pressures in 8 games with 11 sacks and 12 quarterback hits. Romello Height has 37 pressures, 4 sacks himself. And then, AJ Holmes has 19 on his own. I mean, this whole defensive front is just terrifying in every sense of the word, because they really are just the absolute best. And then Lee Hunter, pressure isn't really his game, but I mean, at nose tackle, he is fantastic. He has an 86.4 run defense grade. Then grades for David Bailey, Romello Height, 93 and 91.6 in pass rush, respectively. So it's a tall task to really do much of anything against them. And one more note I'll throw in is Romello Height. He's played 30 coverage snaps this season as well, and has a 92.7 grade in coverage.
Because why not?
So this is a versatile group of guys. Tech went out and said, we're going to go get the best guys at pass rushing, at run stopping, and for the particular needs that they had. And they went out and got all of them. And they've put together the best defensive line, not just in the Big 12, maybe in the country. And it's there's just immense talent everywhere on this defensive front for Tech.
Yeah, and there's no deep analysis to be had there. They're just stronger and faster than everyone else. That's it. That's all they need to do to win, and that's how they've won. They're bigger, stronger, and faster than just about everyone that they've gone up against, and that will include K-State. And I think now is as good a time as any to just kind of talk about this game holistically, because the only way that K-State wins this game is by being head and shoulders above the Texas Tech coaching staff. And honestly, I'm not even really sure that would be enough to win convincingly. Full disclosure, I have K-State losing this game, and I have this being a game where Texas Tech is pretty consistently keeping K-State at arm's length. And that's mostly just because of the talent differential. Now, K-State and Chris Kleiman have beat teams where there's been a massive talent differential before. He's owned Oklahoma, which had a pretty similar talent differential. But even those Oklahoma teams, I don't feel like had the trench play that this Texas Tech team does. I think that Avery is going to be running for his life or having to throw on the run a lot, which I don't think Avery's going to have a bad game. I just think that the pressure is going to really affect the offense, the K-State offense. And this is coming from someone who doesn't really think too highly of the Texas Tech offense, which is so weird to say, but they just do enough given what they are provided by their insanely good defense to win consistently. So I'm not confident going into this game.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not really either. I don't think our offensive line matches up well with the Texas Tech defensive line, particularly their edge rushers, David Bailey and Romello Height. I think our best option is going to be a lot of quick passes. We probably need to see Matt Wells working some screens because we only tried one against KU. Other than that, get Avery out of the pocket. That's going to be our best saving grace against this Texas Tech defensive front. And that's really going to be our main weapon against their pass rush, is that Avery is incredibly mobile and is pretty good at evading pressure, actually. So that, I think, is going to have to be something that we rely on, where we have Avery evade initial pressure. And if he can do that enough, eventually we might get a few big plays out of that. The problem is that their pressure gets there so reliably and so quickly that he's not going to be able to save the day every single snap. Like we're going to have reps where the offensive line steps up and is able to, at the very least, slow down the Tech pass rush so they're not getting home instantly. And I don't know if I trust the offensive line to do that with any level of consistency. I mean, Avery's only been pressured like 26% of his dropbacks this year. That number is going to be a lot higher, I think, out of this game. Probably at least in like the high 30s, probably in the 40s in terms of percentage.
Yeah. And Matt Wells needs to have the game of his life if K-State is going to win. And Avery needs to execute that game plan perfectly. And even as someone who has defended Matt Wells on the year and has think that he's actually been pretty solid, not great, not a world beater, but solid, I'm not particularly confident in it. Now, however, what we have failed to account for is the Tech aspect of it, because we have witnessed Texas Tech Clemson before, which that sentence may sound like nonsense, but if you are familiar with Clemsoning, it is what Clemson is currently doing, where they have super high expectations, win a few games, and then just for no reason start collapsing. Texas Tech has Clemsoned many times before, and that's kind of our only hope. That and home field advantage and Baron Morton maybe being rushed back, but I don't want to wish a player getting hurt because Baron Morton doesn't seem like a bad dude. Like, if I thought he killed someone, yeah, I wouldn't feel bad. But he doesn't seem like a bad guy. I don't want to root for him to get hurt. But, yeah, I'm not confident. I think I'm not going to say that Texas Tech dog walks K-State, but I am saying that Texas Tech keeps K-State at arm's length for the majority of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that we'll probably lose 2 possessions in this game. I think that's about where I have us. I probably, if I had to give a score projection, probably 42-28 is about where I'm at. I do think that we'll still get some touchdown drives in there. We'll probably have at least one big play because that is one area that we might be able to try and exploit is their secondary just being okay. And Jace obviously is having a great season. So like there are some passing game possibilities there, but again, Texas Tech, they really been betting all year. Their pass rush is going to be better than whatever deficiencies they have on the back end, and again, their secondary isn't bad. They're just not as elite as their front six. Like this isn't going to be like if the pass rush doesn't get home, all our receivers going to be wide open all the time. Like this is going to be if we survive the pass rush, then maybe there's going to be guys open downfield. But it's just not elite defense top to bottom. It's elite at the front and then pretty good on the back end. So that's going to be our best option, I think, is Avery extending plays. And, frankly, I think the receivers need to work on rollout routes. It seems like a lot of times when Avery's rolling out, guys aren't really moving. They're kind of just watching. That's something I hope we work on this week, is guys knowing what to do when Avery's out of the pocket and moving around, come back to the ball and flow with Avery, whichever direction he's going to flow with them, but we basically need to be prepping for guerrilla warfare, I think, against this threat is what we need to do.
We need people in the damn trees.
That is, yeah. We're at to send Camden Beebe to go spy on their coordinators or something like that. Which I don't even know how well that would work because their athletes just that good. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe we can have Camden put Miralax and David Bailey's Gatorade or something.
It's like Nolan Ryan saying yeah, I'm going to throw you a fastball. Good luck. It's 103. You're not hitting it. So
yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this. So John Pastore, Andrew Langang,
Good luck.
Please.
Anyway, you have any final notes before we sign off?
No, nothing else from me. Wish I was more optimistic, but I guess one thing is, in the past we've had letdown games after the KU game. If we lose this game, I don't think it's going to be because of that.
No.
It's just going to be because Texas Tech is really good.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be up and ready for this game, but I don't think we're going to lose because we slept walk through the week.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Boutstore, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store. Link found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.